We are here. We are live. Yes, we are on both places. Okay, so wait. Hello. Happy Tuesday. I am here. You are here. We're all here together. And as usual, I don't have a specific thing I want to talk about. However, I have a general idea of what I want to talk about. But we'll see who shows up and what you want to talk about vocally. Hi, Brian. How you doing? What are you singing lately? What are you working on? I am very lucky to have so many new people on here. I'm very grateful that you're here, that you're hanging out. A lot of new Vocal Magic students as well. I'm starting my newest cohort on Thursday. And if you missed that, I apologize, but send me a message and let me know if you're interested, because the more interest I have, the sooner I will start a new cohort. So usually I just do it twice a year because it's a 6-month program. But if I have a lot of interest, then I will try and open up some time in my schedule to have another cohort and do that, because the more I can do this and help people be more comfortable singing in front of people, because that's the one of the many focuses of the program. It's the reason why we do a group program is to get people out of their comfort zone just a little bit, because you can sing in front of me all day and get super regulated with singing in front of me and in one-on-one, but it becomes a whole different thing to be in a group of people who are like-minded, who are dealing with the same stuff you're dealing with, and be training your mind, training your brain-voice connection, training your actual muscles, and training your nervous system to start treating singing in front of people as less of a big freaking deal. So the little mini steps you take outside your comfort zone every week, singing in front of people who get it, who are a safe space for you, the more you will start feeling like singing in front of people, going for those high notes, whatever your thing is that triggers your nervous system, it will start to feel like less and less of a threat, little bit by little bit. This is not something that I can just turn on for you or that you can turn on for you. It just happens over time. So we're training ourselves to be in community around our voice, instead of just being the one person who's a singer that you know and nobody else you know that feels all the feels that you're feeling, feels all the feels. Both technically, it's just nice to have people to talk to technicalities about and technique, but also it's really nice to have people to chat with about like the scary things about being a singer. And it's great if you have musician friends, but they don't always understand the intricacies of being a singer either. It's nice to have producers and guitar player friends, but like if they don't use their voice as often as you do, if they don't use it in the same ways and take the same risks that you do, it's also not the same thing. They're a great place to start for community, but it's really nice to have other people who get it. Anyway, this is more last week's topic. But today, hey Wes, how you doing? Nice to see you. Today, I kind of wanted to talk about kind of where to even start from. Like, if you don't have a community, if you don't have a coach, like what do you do? What are the ways to on your own every day start creating those habits to find more freedom in your voice? And of course, it's always great to have a coach, a community, people that get it, people that have been where you are. But if you don't have that yet, there are plenty of things you can do to start moving in those directions. And this is something that goes for if you do have a coach, if you do have a community, in between the times when you see them and when you're chatting with them, these are also things you can do to just be aware of what your body is doing and what your own little things to work on can be. So the number one thing I always tell people is, number one, you have to know yourself. You have to know your mechanism. Number one, you have to know what happens in your mind, and you have to know your nervous system. You have to know what is bound to happen every single time. What are your patterns? What are the default grooves for your brain? right? What are the pathways that are used constantly when you're singing? And for some people, like, you have a very clear idea of what that means technique-wise, but have never really stopped to look at what's going on in your mind while those struggles are happening. Some people, it's the opposite. Some people really know their mind because they've, been doing this introspective work for a long time, been going to therapy, all that stuff. But they don't really have any idea about the technique differences. So it's really important to know what you do know and what you don't know, and then to start really tapping into getting to know yourself even more. So how I start most of my students, whether they're in the group or not, or private sessions, we start with getting to know, first of all, where your comfort zone is in your voice. Some people, it's your chest voice, and some people it's your head voice, and some people it's a quiet, breathy voice, and some people it's the blasty chest voice, belty thing, whatever you want to call it. There's so many names for it. But it's really important to know that that's your comfort zone and how it feels when you try and get out of your comfort zone. Like, what is the thing that happens when you try and get out of your comfort zone? So, for example, the vast majority of people that come to me, their comfort zone is this speaky place, this very chest voicey, kind of powerful most of the time, like anywhere that feels like adjacent to speaking or making a speech or trying to project to the back of an audience if you're telling them something, just not like what I'm doing here, but just like, hey, how are you? My name is Sarah, that kind of a feeling. And when I ask them to go any higher than their bridge, it ends up being very tight, very breathy. Does it sound familiar? Tightness all around creates breathiness, creates pitchiness sometimes. Most of the time it's the breathiness and the tightness that's holding your actual vocal folds back from doing the thing that they need to do, which is come together and vibrate. So that's what happens most of the time. So a lot of times that manifests in people as they come and they're like, yeah, I just am not a high singer. I'm an alto, or I'm a baritone. They just identify with that lack of expansion that they have never done. Like, I just can't sing high, so this is what I am. This is my comfort zone. This is where I'm going to live forever. And this is what I mean about getting to know your voice. Like, if you have had anybody tell you in the past, like, no, you're only a baritone, don't ever try and sing tenor because you can't, like, that is not it's not a fair assumption, because unless you've had many years of operatic training, there's no real actual point in labeling yourself a certain voice type, because there's always expansion that can be done. There's always more training that can be done to expand your range and your tone and all the things that come into your voice type. So just throw those ideas out right now. We're just getting to know your voice as it is right now, knowing that it's going to change as you work on it more. So the other thing that people experience is the opposite of that. So they're either really commonly opera singers or musical theater singers, and they have a lot of power and presence in their head voice. So, that kind of a feeling, instead of which is more chest voicey kind of a coordination. And so they come in singing everything in head voice, right? Even pop songs, they go, when it, in a more pop sensibility, would be like, which is a very different flavor, right? It's a different texture, it's a different feeling. And it's not a bad thing. It's just same thing as the other people. It's where they have gotten used to hanging out in their voice, and that's how they immediately default when they're in singing mode. They just go right to head voicey, musical theatery sound. And so again, they say, oh, I'm only a soprano, I can't sing low very much, I don't know how to make that pop sound, I'm just not going to sing pop. I'm just like, okay, that may be where you are right now, but that doesn't mean that is where you're going to live forever. My goal is always to, number one, get people to know their voice and understand their voice, so that they can start asking all the right questions. Number two is to start to help them find different paintbrushes to paint with, so that they don't have to stay stuck with just this one tone, this one flavor, this one experience when you're singing. I want you to be able to find all the different paintbrushes to paint with, so you can make a piece of art that is dynamic, that has contrast. So you're not just doing one thing. Like, even if you have so much power, nobody wants to hear a song that's at 100% all the time, right? Because there's no contrast, there's no story there. And so I want you to be able to play with all of the different textures and all of the different shapes and brightnesses and tones and registers and feelings that you can make with your human voice, because this is the most beautiful thing about the human voice, is that there is a spectrum, right? We can do so many more nuanced little things than most physical instruments can do outside the body, because we are human. Our instrument is inside of our body, and it is directly connected to our brain, so much so that, like, we don't even realize what how closely it's connected and how immediately things change. My favorite example is, like, what happens when you stub your toe. Like, even before you feel the pain, you go ow, right? Stub your toe, ow, then you actually feel the pain. Like, your voice is so intimately connected that the quickness of that beats even your nerves, which are lightning fast, right? And so if we're thinking in our mind, I can't hit that note, guess what the first message is that's going to go to the voice is that I can't hit that note. And guess what these muscles are going to take from that? Oh, I better tighten up and make some shit happen. Right? And so tightness or flight people, you end up giving up on the note before you even put all the right what's the word I'm looking for? All the right fuel behind it, all the right pressure. Freeze people, just cut off the air before they even try that note. So it really depends on your default answer, your body's default answer, your nervous system's default answer to a threat, a problem. But that will be something that is incredibly important for you to know, so that you can start to notice, number one, accept, don't fight it. Because when you fight these things, you're just fighting yourself, and you're not giving yourself the space and the grace to grow at all. If you're just resisting how you are currently, you're not going to be able to have any legs to stand on when you take that next step forward. Hopefully that makes sense. And that's a fact of all areas of life. Like, we have to love and accept where we are. Otherwise, there's no chance in growing. So we notice, we accept, and then we can start to, before that default happens, we can start to choose a different pathway. We can start to choose a different groove to go down, right? So, like, when you are out in the country and there's dirt roads everywhere, like, those dirt roads get really solidly grooved over time, right? The paths that are used the most get so strongly grooved so that even if you try to take a different path, it's going to lead you back into the groove, right? If you've ever driven on on a well-used dirt road, you know how that goes. And so we have to really do some committed work every moment, every day while we're singing, to start to choose a different pathway. So my favorite example of this is like, if you're trying to sing a high note and your default is like fight, and so you're tightening up here, you're muscling those high notes out, you're just giving it all you got, and it's just not happening. We have to first notice that this is my default. This is where my range tops out right now, maybe. Or we can test out some different things with warm-ups and exercises to find out where your actual top of your belt range is, or your top of your high register is, because it may not be a reality because of all these other things that are getting in the way of your actual ability to make sound up there. So once we notice what's happening, then we can start to figure out what our default reaction to that is. So if you're a fight person and you know that, then your job is going to be like, oh, I know I'm about to sing this high note. I know that my default is to muscle it out, is to force and fight and overdo. So in this moment, I know it seems like it's a really quick moment and you're not going to be able to have all these thoughts in your head, but I promise you it's possible after practice. In this moment, I'm going to choose to release instead of muscle and fight and manipulate. In this moment, I'm going to choose to let go. And so then we start to learn that we can change things, we can change our default, and we learn to show the body and give the body evidence that we can make these sounds without all that extra tension. So in this case, I would say the best practice is to, make some cartoon character noises, do some princess sighs, like, because we can all make noises in different parts of our range. But for some reason, when it comes to singing, being in singing mode, we have to be perfect and pretty and just nail all those big high notes. But we don't have all that pressure on ourselves when we're just making noise, when we're just being silly and cartoonish, right? So in those moments, if you're trying to sing a high note and first of all, you notice that you're about to start fighting everything, you're about to start manipulating. Hey, Sam, how are you? Welcome. You start to say, okay, I know that my body's about to tighten up and try and fight this note, but my job, and I know that I can do this because I have been practicing my little princess sighs or my Mickey Mouse voice or whatever it is. I know I have evidence that I can do this without all the extra pushing. I'm going to choose that instead. And there's a certain amount of being okay with imperfection that has to happen in those moments, because you may have 20 years of evidence of yourself straining for those high notes. And that's going to be the habit, that's going to be the groove that you fall into. However, more recently, you may have been working on your character voices, finding those higher sounds without all the extra pressure that we put on singing. And so you get to choose in those moments because you are in charge of your voice. You are the captain. You get to choose. I'm going to try this. I know I don't have as much evidence as the other way, but I'm going to be okay with whatever comes out of my mouth anyway, even if it's imperfect, even if it's not what I intended. I'm going to choose this path anyway because I am brave and I am committed to my growth. How's this landing? Does it feel accurate to you? Do you have these moments ever? Let me know. Even if you're watching back later, let me know how this lands for you. This is really, really important stuff. And this is stuff you can do on your own without me, without a community. It's a lot of introspection stuff. I highly recommend getting a journal that's dedicated to your voice. I call mine vocal magic journals because of OBS. But it really makes a big difference when you take the time to notice what's happening when you're singing instead of just being in yes or no mode, in comparison mode. Like so many of us start singing and we're like, ooh, that was bad. And then we stop, right? There's no willingness to be a scientist. There's no willingness to let anything bad out of our mouths. And so we just give up in those moments. At least I do. I don't know if you experience that. All sorts of in my head while performing. Yes. Worrying and straining for those highs. Yeah. And it's not because you can't make that noise. I'm sure you can, but it's in a different context, different preparation. And when we're not in singing mode, all of that pressure goes away. And so I would love for you to try out this week playing with a character voice of some kind, Mickey Mouse voice. Walk around the house talking like Mickey Mouse, and you're going to feel like an idiot, but that's okay. So you're going to strengthen the grooves of that pathway of being in your high without all the weight and without all the needing to be pretty or good or perfect. It just being stupid and silly. That's a great way to take all the pressure off easily. We don't want to rely on that, of course, all the time. But I think it's a really good way to get yourself out of your head a little bit and to train your body to recognize what it's like to be in that coordination without pushing so hard, And it has helped a lot of people, and I'm interested to see what that will do for you, because so much of what we think of as a range issue is actually a nervous system and your mind issue. It's a bodily worry, bodily manipulation of something that you're worried is going to come out of your mouth wrong. uh, but you're not even giving it the chance to be more free and more open before it comes out of your mouth. Because if you're here, you're probably a perfectionist and an overthinker, and we don't ever want to let anything imperfect outside of ourselves. So we fix before it comes out of our mouth, and that is where the wrong notes come from. That's where the pitchiness comes from. That's where the breathiness and the tightness and the strain comes from, is not being okay with whatever comes out of your mouth. Even if you've been training for a while, and even if you have the evidence that you can make those sounds, all of a sudden you step on stage, the nerves come in, it gets real all of a sudden, right? Shit just gets real, and the gremlin comes back. All of a sudden the nervous system tightens up, and it's like, this feels like a dangerous situation, and you go right back to your habits of tightening and manipulating and forcing. Does that sound accurate? Does this does this feel true to anybody? So it really makes a difference that you can, when you're practicing at least, be in scientific mode. Just be like, how can I make this sound in the easiest way possible for my actual mechanism? How can I do this without all the pressure? And if that means doing a cartoon voice, do a cartoon voice. If that means singing it like somebody else, imitating them, do that, just so you can show yourself that it is possible to make that noise without straining and without all the extra efforting that happens. Same goes for flight or freeze people. Your just default is going to be different. So it may not be muscling, may not be forcing things. It may be stopping your air before you even get to that note. And that's something to look at too. I've had to look at people's relationship with their air and how that relates to your nervous system as well. If you're a freeze person, your default may be to just stop and hold your breath before you go to a high note, because you feel like it's giving you some sort of control, or you're worried about what's going to happen, and so you just don't even want to let any sound out, and that's totally an okay thing, because it's our nervous system. That's how we are wired. It's not your fault. It's not a bad thing. Again, we don't want to resist ourselves in those moments. We want to make sure to be open and loving and accepting with where we are. Otherwise, we're not ever going to be able to take a step out of that comfort zone. So if you're one of those people, if you don't give your voice enough air in those big moments that feel like an attack or a threat or something, we work through breathing. We work through being in these situations, being slightly nervous, and taking a little moment to just release and to find your full belly breath. Right? Feeling that area right below your ribs and feeling it expand. And then on your exhale, fully letting it out. Even in those moments where you feel like something weird is going to come out and you're not sure what's going to happen, and oh my God, please don't hate me if a weird sound comes out of my mouth. We have to keep breathing. We have to keep releasing. And everything with the breath, I like to think of as a release. So your inhale is a release of your lower belly muscles. You're releasing and creating space. And your exhale is a release of all that air. You're not pushing. You're not sucking any air in. You're just releasing. And at the end of your exhale, you need a release as well, right? So your inhale is now a release from your exhale. And your exhale is a release from your inhale. And so just getting really comfortable with the strength of your own breath, with the necessity of this feeling of space on the inside to have the fuel for the sounds that you want to make on the outside. That's another thing to maybe journal about. There's a lot of layers to this. And hopefully now you're starting to see just how much this is related to this. Like, I can give you exercises and do scales and stuff with you all day long. But if you're not thinking about what's going on in here, you are not fully using your instrument in the way it was created to be used. And you're ignoring maybe some blocks or some I don't know, if I use a piano metaphor, you're ignoring some strings that are out of tune, or you're ignoring some broken keys, or you're ignoring a pedal that is needs some WD-40, you know? I like metaphors. So just think about next time you sing, how much am I thinking about how I sound and comparing myself and worrying before sound even comes out of my mouth? Versus how much can I focus on what the feeling is? How can I feel into doing less work in here? Because 99% of people I see are doing too much work in here. Even if you're a freeze person, the lack of breath translates to more work in here. So we don't want that. So do some journaling this week. If you don't have a community, if you don't have a coach, totally cool. You can do this work on your own. All I do is get you to know the questions to ask so that you can become your own vocal coach over time. And if you show up for my lives every week, you can probably already do that. You probably know what I talk about so often that you know what I'm going to ask you. I have many students who, they take little breaks from lessons and they go off and do whatever they're doing. And they're like, you were in my head the whole time. I was thinking of all these things that you'd say to me. And I'm like, yes, that's great. That means you're becoming your own vocal coach. It's pretty awesome. I love it very much. Oh, I gotta change time zones. Daylight savings time is a pain in the butt, you guys. I live in Hawaii. We don't do it here. So every single meeting I have with somebody who doesn't live here moves forward an hour. Why? Why are we still doing this? It's silly. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say. So the point is, you can start doing this work today on your own, by yourself. It's always helpful to have people to do it with, other singers specifically to talk about this stuff with. And that's why I'm here on Instagram doing this thing. I'm always here if you have questions. But if you want to start doing this work on your own, start with this work, knowing your voice the best you can. And I mean, not just your range, not just what voice type you think you are. Remember, we're throwing that out because it doesn't even apply to most people. We are thinking about what my default is, what my gremlin says all the time, what my fight, flight, or freeze default is, where you feel most comfortable in your voice, and what happens physically when you go out of your comfort zone. So take those three things and journal about them today and see what comes up. And the next time you sing, I want you to start noticing how that affects every single word and every single note. Don't get overthinking about it, but just notice a little bit more. So yeah, hopefully that will help. Maybe next week I will continue on about what to do next after you know your voice super, super well. What then can we start doing? It's a little tough because everybody has very different things that they're working on and different issues. But I think it's really good to notice. And number two, the most important thing, once you start noticing, do not fight yourself. Don't resist these things. They are part of you. We love every part of you, okay? We don't want to resist because it's just going to make everything harder. You're just going to be in a battle with yourself in here, and we don't want that. I know it's easier said than done. It takes many years to stop battling with ourselves. A lot of us. I still do it all the time. But it's really good to notice that that's your tendency, and to give yourself a little bit of slack and love, God knows there's so many haters in the world. We don't need to be another one for ourselves. This is why we have a community, to have more positive voices than the very strong negative voice that's in your head, probably. So we can start at least balancing them out and then eventually drowning them out. So we want the positive voices and the trust and the feeling focused instead of the sound focused thoughts to start balancing out and overtaking those negative voices, because they're not necessary. Honestly, most of us, they're not doing us any favors. They're just holding us back from having our true voice come out into the world. Why does my voice type not apply or matter for most people? I can cover this really quick at the beginning. I'm not sure if you came in right after that. But basically, if you're not a trained opera singer, if you have not been fully training your voice in like a classical style for a couple years, you probably don't know your full range. So there's no point in giving yourself a type based on the range that you think you have currently, because it's most likely not the range that is possible in your voice. It's just where your comfort zone is. And so putting a label on yourself based on where your comfort zone is implies that you're not going to take as many risks or take as many little steps outside that comfort zone. And there's something to be said, of course, for knowing your range and for making the song work for you instead of trying to put yourself into a little box. You know what I mean? So it's really helpful to just let go of those notions. You know, I'm a soprano, I'm an alto, I'm a baritone, blah, 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 because it's just, most people use it as an excuse, honestly. If I'm going to be super real, as a vocal coach, I hear that term and I go, oh, excuse for not singing higher, not singing lower, not singing other things, not stretching yourself and you know, doing the training that's necessary to actually expand your range. So hopefully that helps. Yeah, most of the time it's just an extra box, an extra reason to should on yourself, and it's not helpful. Does that help? Yeah, it's really, and if you're not singing in like an operatic ensemble, there's really no reason for it either, you know, because the voice types were created just to help categorize the sections of singers that are singing in 4-part or more harmony. And if you're not doing that, it really doesn't matter, if that makes sense. If you're singing just on your own most of the time or with a couple other people, who cares? You know, altos can go above sopranos, sopranos can go super low, tenors can go super low, baritones can go super high. It really doesn't. It's your voice and it's unique, and we don't need more boxes to put it in. Hopefully that helps. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go, but it was lovely to hang out with you guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for showing up. It's nice to have a little crew that's showing up every week. Like I said, if you're doing this work, I promise you I will be in your head sooner than later, and you will start to be your own vocal coach, and you'll start to ask all these questions on your own. My goal is that you don't need me for 10 years. You know, nobody should need a vocal coach for 10 years. Occasionally it's good to go back, but like once you start asking all these questions for yourself, you're doing all the right things. You know, you're making sure that you don't hurt yourself. You're making sure that you're not putting any extra weight on your voice. Yeah, it'll come after a while. So if you're watching this and you don't have the energy or time or money for a vocal coach right now, it's fine. It's all good. You are where you are. Just start asking all these really important questions about all the layers, right? Not just the exercises and the warm-ups and how do I do those and how do I sing higher, but how am I getting in the way of the voice that I already have? There's my mic drop moment for the day. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions. I'm here for you. If you didn't get into vocal magic this time, totally fine. All good. Let me know if you're interested, and the more interest I have, the sooner I will open up another cohort in a couple months. So let me know, send me a DM or something. Also, if it was just too much for you right now, but you want to do at least a little bit of learning on the side, I have a bundle of 3 workshops that I really love. It's a lot of this stuff, but in depth. So they're 3-hour-long workshops. And I put them in a little bundle. It's called the Love My Voice Workshop Bundle. And it's half off right now. It's up there. If you have friends that are wanting to get more into using their voice in different ways, send that to them. It's a super easy, affordable way to just start thinking about your voice in a different way than you've probably ever thought about it before. I have the Every Note is Easy challenge as well. I have my 555 practice challenge that I'll probably start again soon. And those are all free. If you're waiting for free stuff, keep holding on. This is a quick little affordable. You have access to them for forever. You can always go back to them and remind yourself, oh yeah, I'm not allowing in this way, you know. The first one is breath unsupport, all the things you need to unlearn to breathe better as a singer. Second one is called Space Cadets. Again, my weirdness shows through. It's about how to be accurate while using less effort and not more. And then the third one is about your gremlin. It's about get rid of the gremlin, how to be in a mode of gremlin-free singing instead of being weighed down by that gremlin voice all the time. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, super affordable, right up there. It's half off right now, just for you guys, because there's so many awesome new people here. And if vocal magic is something that you're interested in the future, but now is not the time, this is a great way to start. So go check it out. And I love you. And I will see you very soon. Okay, bye.